Hey there, Psychology Facts family. Have you ever wondered why a fish stays on a hook, even though it's hurting? Or why a moth is drawn to a flame, even though it's dangerous? Well, these are not just random acts of nature, they are surprisingly similar to why people stay in toxic relationships. Intrigued? Stick around to find out more. Number 1. Imagine you're a bird in a cage. The door is wide open, yet you're not flying out. Why? Because the cage, with its cold, hard bars and limited space, is all you've ever known. It's your world, your reality. You've grown accustomed to its confines, its limitations. You've forgotten what it feels like to spread your wings and soar through the open sky, to feel the wind beneath your feathers, to experience the exhilarating freedom of flight. This is a powerful metaphor for what happens in toxic relationships. People get so used to the toxicity, the constant negativity, the emotional turmoil, that they start believing it's normal. They forget what it's like to be in a healthy relationship, one that's based on mutual respect, understanding, and love. They become so entangled in the web of toxicity that they can't see the way out, even when the door is wide open. The toxicity becomes their cage, their prison. It's a cage made not of steel bars, but of harsh words, manipulation, and emotional abuse. And just like the bird, they stay in this cage, not because they want to, but because they've forgotten what it's like to be free. They've forgotten that they have the power to fly, to escape the cage, to leave the toxicity behind. But just as the bird can learn to fly again, so too can people in toxic relationships rediscover their strength, their worth, their freedom. It's never easy, but with support, understanding, and time, they can break free from the cage of toxicity and soar once again. Number 2. Let's delve deeper into a real-life example. Consider a person who has spent their entire childhood in a household where shouting and arguing were the norm. This environment, filled with tension and conflict, is what they've come to associate with normal. As they grow older and form relationships of their own, they might unconsciously seek out partners who exhibit similar behaviors, leading to a similar relationship dynamic. This is because that's what they're familiar with. That's what they've been conditioned to understand as normal. It's akin to a person who's lived in a bustling, noisy city all their life, surrounded by the constant hum of traffic, the cacophony of crowded streets, and the relentless rhythm of urban life. When such a person tries to sleep in the quiet, serene countryside, they might find it unsettlingly quiet. The absence of noise, rather than being calming, becomes a source of discomfort because it's so far removed from what they're used to. The same principle applies to people who stay in toxic relationships. The familiarity of the toxicity, however harmful, becomes a comfort zone that's hard to step out of. Number 3. Another reason people stay in toxic relationships is the psychological phenomenon known as the sunk cost fallacy. Picture this. You've waited in line for hours to get into a concert. You've braved the weather, the crowd, and the long wait, all in anticipation of the music. But when you're almost at the door, you realize the band is not one you like. It's a moment of disappointment, a moment of realization. What do you do now? Would you leave or stay? Interestingly, most people would choose to stay. They think about the time they've already invested, the hours they've spent standing in line, the effort they've put into getting this far. They decide to stay, not because they expect to enjoy the concert, but because they hope to justify the time and effort they've already invested. This is exactly what happens in toxic relationships. People think about the time, emotions, and resources they've invested into the relationship. They remember the good times, the happy moments, and the shared experiences. They decide to stay, not because they are happy or fulfilled, but because they hope things will get better. They hope their investment will eventually pay off. This hope, fueled by the sunk cost fallacy, often keeps people stuck in toxic relationships far longer than they should. Number 4. Fear is another significant factor that keeps people tethered to toxic relationships. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a high diving board. You're high above the water, the wind is whipping around you, and you can feel the cold, hard edge of the board under your feet. You're scared to jump, to take that leap into the unknown, to surrender yourself to the forces of gravity and momentum. But at the same time, you're also scared to climb down the ladder in front of everyone. The thought of admitting defeat, of acknowledging your fear in front of a crowd, is equally daunting. This is a perfect metaphor for how fear works in toxic relationships. People are scared of being alone, of facing the world without the familiar, albeit harmful, presence of their partner. They fear the judgment and the whispers, the "I told you so's" from friends and family. They fear the unknown future, the uncertainty of life without their partner, the prospect of starting over. These fears, as paralyzing as they may be, often keep people trapped in toxic relationships, unable to make the jump towards a healthier, happier life. Number 5. Lastly, there's the frog in boiling water analogy. A powerful metaphor that illustrates how people often become trapped in toxic relationships. If a frog is put in boiling water, it will instinctively jump out immediately. The sudden, intense heat is an immediate threat, a clear and present danger that triggers an immediate reaction. But if the same frog is put in cold water that's slowly heated, it won't realize the danger until it's too late. The change is so gradual, so subtle, that the frog doesn't perceive the increasing heat as a threat until it's already in a life-threatening situation. Similarly, toxicity in relationships doesn't happen overnight. It's not like flipping a switch or stepping into a boiling pot of water. Instead, it builds up slowly, insidiously. It starts with small things, minor disagreements, and subtle manipulations that might not even register as problematic at first. Over time, these small issues accumulate, the temperature of the relationship slowly rises, and the environment becomes increasingly hostile. Before you know it, you're in deep, not realizing how bad things have become. You've become accustomed to the heat, to the toxicity, and you don't realize that you're in a dangerous situation. You've been slowly boiled, and the relationship that once seemed warm and comforting is now threatening and harmful. Just like the frog, people in toxic relationships often don't realize the severity of their situation until it's too late. They've become acclimated to the rising temperature, to the escalating toxicity, and they don't see the danger until they're already in boiling water. This analogy serves as a stark reminder of how important it is to be aware of the subtle changes in our relationships and to take action before the situation becomes critical. So, that's why people often stay in toxic relationships. It's complex and deeply personal. But remember, like the bird, you too have the power to fly out of the cage. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more insightful content. Until next time, take care of yourself and remember, you deserve to be in a healthy and happy relationship.